Welcome to Mycon Training. Today we are going to discuss the unit CHCECE036. Provide experience to support children's play and learning, which is a great thing to learn because play is pretty much the job that children does. All they do is to play. From your observation of children during play, you will learn to identify experiences and strategies to enhance their learning and development. You will be able to ensure that provisions for play and leisure reflect the cultural diversity, gender, and ability of children. You will also look at a time as a tool to encourage in-depth play and your role as an educator in supporting children's development. So overall, this unit, we are going to pretty much learn about how, as an educator, we are going to do the best of our role and to provide the best opportunity for the children to learn, play, to learn the skills, and to enhance their learning and their opportunity. During this unit, you will learn create environment for play, support children's agency through play and learning, review and evaluate play opportunities. For this unit, you need to download and use the following documentations: National Quality Standard, Education and Care Service National Regulations, EYLF for Australia, Educator's Guide to the Early Learning Framework, Your Time, My Time, Your Place, Framework for School Age Care in Children in Australia. Educator's Guide to the Time, My Time, Your Place Framework for School Care in Australia. History of Childhood Play, Chapter number 1. In here we are going to learn the history, that how play was basically introduced, how play came. So the concept of childhood is difficult to define as it is different in every culture, and it reported depending on the view of historians reporting these changes. It is also based on their field of expertise. So the first thing first that need to clarify is every single culture, every single country, every single people, maybe according to their culture, their plays are different. Some people truly believe on rough and tumble and outdoor play. Some people will say no, play shall be really nice and quiet, gentle, organized. So it totally depends on culture to culture that how play has been differentiated in many different ways and many different cultures and countries. The view of childhood is social, political, and cultural. Middle Ages. French medievalist historian Philippe Iris in 1966 believed that childhood was a modern concept not invented until about the 160s. However, there other researchers through examining painting and art craft show that childhood had always existed and was often catered for by family. The other main theme throughout all the eras is that children always have played. Children played, no matter when, middle age, early age, Western European cultures, ancient times, ancient Rome times. Children always played, so it's nothing new. Western and European cultures. Let's look others together first at Western and European cultures of what is called the romanticized version of history. This view of childhood describes the changes in early childhood, changing from a mid-street life to one where the child is saved and protected. Ancient time. It is believed the ancient Romans did not consider children human until they could walk and talk. Oh, how sad is that, isn't it? If the children were not walking and talking, they were not even considered as humans. It is estimated that 28% of all children died in the first 12 months of their life due to life circumstances. Infanticide, like killing of babies, was practiced in many cultures throughout the world as a way of disposing of children who were deformed, sick, or wrong genders. This was an accepted practice in society at that time. That was so bad. So it's so sad to see that way. Ancient Rome. Archaeologists have discovered a range of toys including balls, dolls, kites, and bells. War games were depicted and in art, and male children enlisted by 12 years in the Roman services. From the age of puberty, children were considered to have rational mind and were expected to participate in a society. Medieval times, which is the 6th to the 15th century, children were viewed as little adults, and that children were not cared about by their families. This is now challenged, and childhood should be seen in a context of the lives people were living. Many painters depicted children as dressed in loose clothing, childlike, playing and looking up and down at adults. Childhood was often defined as below the age of 7 or 8 and recognized teens as not being fully developed by receiving more lenient sentence for crimes. Archaeologists have discovered toy knights, tiny cooking pots, hobby horses, board games such as chess and backgammon. Spare the rod and spoil the child. Discipline. Discipline was very harsh at that time. Discipline was very, very harsh. Our children were beaten in an attempt to correct their behavior due to the high death rate. It was once thought that parents did not care for abandoning their child or children's. Text also shows that children were grieved by their mothers upon their death or the need for abandonment. Professor Miriam Shady suggested that there is a lot of evidence to suggest that parents in the Middle Ages loved and protected their children and saw childhood as different from adulthood. So that time it was a bit different than before. Class system. Children were given to wet nurses from birth and returned to parents at the age 3 was common. However, not in all families. Families were divided into class, and this had had a great influence on a child's family life and childhood. Children were educated in a home, and children's childhood experience varied depending on the affluence of a family. Children from a young age were expected to help in a home, including caring for animals, fetch water, carrying and cooking food, as previously children died from accidents, drowning, falling, injury with animals, because they were children, they were little, and they actually had to do all this adult work, and they expected them to make sure that children are able to do it. Boys and girls were often given to convent or monasteries to the groomed of clergy. This was believed to help them live a pure life. The Reformation on 16th century. Puritans believed in original sin. They believed children were born evil and stubborn and needed to be civilized. Poor children at that time. Parenting was harsh, restrictive, and aimed to tame the child. Children were dressed in stiff, uncomfortable clothing which held them in adult postures. Parents often raised their children in religious instructions, and this was the first time spatial reading were developed to teach children about the moral and religious belief. By the end of this period, parents balanced between severe and gentle punishment. Artifact shows children played with a range of toys, including hobby horses, dolls, and family games. Era of Enlightenment, which is the 17th century. In this century, a little bit of change happened. This era saw an intellectual movement in a society. Parents look to the work of philosophers for child rearing guidance. British philosopher John Locke 1632 to 1704, focused on the environment as important in modeling young children. He believed that all children were born with no thoughts, ideas, or characteristics. He referred to them as a tabula rasa, which meant a blank state. So he actually started coming from his research that children didn't have no ideas or they didn't have no characters. So the way they raised, that way they might build their characters. The role of parents was to fill children's head with the right belief and knowledge. 17th century. Depending on class, boys would attend school and girls tutored from home. Children supported their family by participating in chores such as collecting water, gathering sticks, cooking and cleaning. They also had time to play using a range of toys including spinning tops, knucklebones and animals' whistles, board games, dolls made out of woods and clays. Well, at that time, at least, children had some opportunity to play, because in 17th century they had a kind of understanding that okay, children were born with nothing in their brain. They, whatever they go through, maybe that's the thing that they will have in their lives. So that was a bit of era in that time in 17th century where it coming to get together of what play could be like. Industrial Revolution on 18th century. Childhood changed immensely in this era, moving from home to industry. I think at that time the child labours was pretty much introduced, because the child labor actually come from that era where the Industrial Revolution happened, when if the girls are working with the mothers, or if the girls are having a tutor at home to study and to help their mothers to doing the house chores, the boys have to go outside and work in the industry, and there started the child labor there. Let's see what comes next. The Industrial Revolution saw children of poor families used as child laborers in factories, coals, mines, cotton and wool factories, and as chimney sweeps, as they were small, cheap, and could fit into light spaces. In 1833, a 10-hour ACT Act was introduced. This meant that children must be 9 years old and above to work, and only had to work 10 hours a day. Previously, it was 16 hours a day. Child labor. In 1856, a law allowed child labor over 9 years to work 60 hours a week. In 1991, the age of work was raised to 12 years. This left little time to play for these children, because previously it was 9 and they moved to 12, and 3 years of extra period of time for them to enjoy and play. In contrast of these harsh conditions, society, the view of childhood were changing, and this would be the start of modern day early childhood teaching and a different view of the child and play. There is a lot of history over here, and we are going to move forward to few more eras. So we will be continuing the rest of it in our next slide, in our next recording. Thank you so much for listening.